Settled on this strip of land, the bulk of human civilization resides in fractured nations. As they delve into the past, experiment with relics, and just try to survive, the people of this area are generally unaware of the greater world around them. With 1 billion years of history literally at their feet, it is here that human civilization has arisen once again. Welcome to the Steadfast. Hey, Qedhup here, speaking for himself. If you like what I do, consider visiting my Ko-fi link below to drop a few bucks for this Canuck. I'd greatly appreciate it, as the more tips I get, the more I can focus on doing fun stuff like this. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. More and more videos are getting released all the time. Now, before we get into this, I do have to say a word about proper pronunciation of names and places within Numenera. I had a chat with Sean K. Reynolds about this, and this is what he had to say.
Who are you? And what are you doing in my house?
But after I was in handcuffs, he was nice enough to finally let me know.
Hey man, sorry about the misunderstanding. There's no official pronunciation for things. It's a big world. There are regional differences, so pronounce them however you like.
Awesome, thanks Sean. Although we'll want to delve a little deeper into each specific nation and some of the key points of interest, I think it's important we at least give a broader overview to what is generally the starting point of many games in the Numenera role-playing game, the Steadfast. The people of the Steadfast are not an ancient culture, although no one knows exactly how long humanity has been around since their Reemergence. It's a tiny fraction of time compared to literally everything else. Recorded history only started about 900 years ago, which is really short when you think about it. They clothed themselves and used tools from the scavenged or reprocessed materials of the previous age. When you live in a world that already has been mined out, processed, and reworked entirely, it's not natural resources you rely on, but debris from the 8 previous worlds. Much of human society in the Steadfast is content with using the artifacts and ciphers of ancient civilizations long past, aka the Numenera. As a result, society is an eclectic mix of something we would see as medieval, with peasants and kings and crude villages and castles, but also something science fiction and grandiose, with ancient robots and advanced superstructures beyond the understanding of our primitive minds. But that's not to say everyone is content to just live among the trash of the gods. Independent nanos tinker with devices and explore the unplumbed depths. The Aeon priests spread their influence to uncover the truth, their understanding of the Numenera, and how everything around them actually works. This is in addition to other organizations, from gangs of techno-freaks to a secret society that resides in a multi-dimensional library of sorts. There are plenty of people that seek understanding of the past. The people are generally divided into a class system. Usually the poor and the rich, but there are some places with a rising middle class of merchants and management. The Order of the Truth and the Aeon Priests are part of that upper class. Part religion, part scientific order. They're not based on any religion you would recognize, but instead venerate the people and things from the past, the Numenera itself. Although not nearly as populated as 21st century Earth, the people of the Steadfast do have a significant presence. Although most villages are small, with dozens to maybe hundreds of people at most, there are larger areas, with one of the cities having a population of over 500,000 individuals. The people of the Steadfast are at their core human. Well, mostly. A human could be someone naturally born of average height and weight and wants nothing more to bring in this year's crop and enjoy a nice drink by the hearth with friends and family. A human could also be a bioengineered cyber techno freak that is almost twice as tall and has multiple mechanical limbs and laser beam eyes who loves to explore the very reaches of reality. In Numenera, both are human. One of the strangest things is, despite not having the knowledge as to why, humanity within the Steadfast somehow instinctively knows that they have re-emerged, that the world was somehow once theirs, albeit a long time ago. They now feel like the world is to become theirs again. Now they're to shepherd it in this ninth world, and the people of the Steadfast are confident that it is them that will be doing it. Whether they're right or wrong has yet to be seen. Before we move on to other aspects of the Steadfast, we should touch upon the fact that humanity is not the only creature that there is that is both sentient and sapient. First are the Abhumans. Creatures or beings that may have been human once, but have changed and or rejected that status, and have become more post-human creatures. A few do this to allow themselves to rise, to become something fantastical and evolved, but only a handful of those exist. Most other Abhumans have done so to regress into a bestial or animalistic state, doing what they must to survive the harsh ninth world. Their minds, and sometimes bodies, have changed and twisted to something dark and hungry. What makes a human an Abhuman is less about the physical change and more about the mental one. They no longer think like you. They no longer have the same wants and needs as you. They may look vaguely human, but mentally they are something other. Then we have the Visitants, those that come from elsewhere. Mayhaps they are remnants of a previous age, but more likely they're travelers from other worlds, dimensions, or universes. Some walk among the Steadfast as people, trying to fit into society, albeit not easily. Others are quite alien, and roam the Steadfast for reasons that we can't quite comprehend. The land itself, at least on the surface, would look somewhat recognizable. Cliffs and rocks look like cliffs and rocks no matter when you are. A beach on the ocean is still a beach on the ocean. But it's only as you look a little deeper and longer that you start to see the past poking through. An ancient cliff may have once been a perfect colossal geometric shape for some unknown purpose. That huge rock may have actually been an ancient artifact structure with unknown alien uses. The sand on that beach may actually be trillions of tiny machines that have washed up upon the shore. The lands of the Steadfast have been worked and reworked countless times. Natural resources like metals and minerals have been removed entirely, leaving only a foundation of settled rock, rust, and debris. This means that mining is not for resource veins, but rather to dig into long-forgotten buried Numenera to harvest for parts. The natural landscape of the Steadfast is almost like a layer of dust over a landfill. Its rock and dirt have been naturally accumulated and then eroded over a long-forgotten world. Well, 8 long-forgotten worlds, actually. But what about what lives on that dirt and rock? Although humanity has somehow re-emerged after a billion-year hiatus, for the most part the plants and animals we're familiar with did not. Although we may recognize some life forms in similar categories to what you or I would know, fish, reptiles, birds, mammals, and so forth, even that is stretching it. A billion years is a long time, and evolution never stops. And that's only talking about the natural evolution. Ancient bioengineering, accidental mutation, and other even more alien processes have shaped life in the Steadfast to be something that would be largely unrecognizable to you or I today. And that's not even counting the life that is beyond our understanding of nature. Quasi-mechanical beasts, energy life forms, creatures made of spatial forces, and stuff even stranger. Unfortunately for us, this is not often in our favor. Evolution, whether natural or guided, often makes things more dangerous rather than less. Predators become more lethal, scavengers become more capable, and even prey gain better defenses. Oh sure, we may luck out with the occasional super crop that can be farmed for amazing levels of food, but for every good plant, there's likely 10 more that have deadly poison, acid spray, or can even move and hunt like an animal, all so they can survive competition in a harsh environment. The weather in the Ninth World is nothing to laugh at either. The Steadfast is in the southern hemisphere, with it growing steadily colder the further south you go. Much of the Steadfast is in what you would call a temperate zone, although the northern section is starting to approach that tropical region. The Steadfast is also a relatively dry region, with rain happening a depressingly small amount within some areas. Although thankfully there are plenty of areas, especially along the coast, that do see more rainfall. The Steadfast often sees harsh storms with tremendous wind, hail, and lightning that dominates the countryside when they happen. And they seem to be happening more and more frequently as time moves on. But that's where normal weather ends and the strange weather of the Ninth World begins. Oily black rain of viscous substance, magnetic or gravitational storms that bend or disrupt all terrain around them, energy storms of things that can affect the fabric of reality, and worst of all, the iron wind. Left over from a previous age, clouds of nanotechnology occasionally wash over the lands, reconfiguring and twisting all matter in its wake. There's no rhyme or reason for the changes. A rock is just as likely to be turned into vapor as it is to be made into a living creature. A person is just as likely to be turned inside out in a horrifying death as it is to be made into a pool of conscious liquid. The iron wind tears apart everything that it passes and changes them in bizarre and often insane ways. The Steadfast is a large strip of land that sits between the open ocean and the Black Riage Mountains. It stretches from the cold southern wall to the warm cloud crystal sky fields to the north. Within this strip of land, humanity does what they do best, and through strife and conflict have fractured themselves into 9 separate warring nations and numerous organizations. So let's go through those nations now, but we're only just going to touch upon them, with each nation getting their own future video. Starting in the north is Navarene, one of the largest and most prosperous kingdoms. If you're playing a game of Numenera and want to start in something that feels more like your stereotypical medieval or fantasy nation, the Navarene is likely a great place to start. Although it is still Numenera and there are plenty of twists. Navarene has one of the largest forests around and ample farmland in the southern regions. The peasants work for wealthy families who pay aristocrats that ultimately serves Queen Armalu. The queen is seen by few. She remains locked inside her palace and only allows the rare outsider to see her if they pass through a series of airlocks, decontamination, searches, and checks. Through a mixture of Numenera augmentation and her paranoia to keep her alive, Queen Armalu has seen over 250 years and is likely one of the oldest living humans around. Next, we move to the Sea Kingdom of Ghana, a jutting peninsula that sits in a relative peace to the other nations. King Laird, although still appearing strong, has no challenges towards any other ruler and is especially careful of Queen Armalu. The Kingdom of Ghana is known for its fleet of merchant sea vessels and is in control of much of the trading boats in the Steadfast. Unlike the rigid class system of Navarene, Ghana is a lot more open, with many citizens freely living as they wish and owing fealty only to the king directly. The king rules from the Coral Palace in the city of Bridges, a city, made of bridges and floating stuff. Bordering there is Draolis, the most heavily populated nation in all of the Steadfast, and home to the largest city as well. Although it once had a monarchy, much like most other nations in the Steadfast, the royal line died out, and the country was taken over by the wealthy and powerful in what became the Council of Spheres. Draolis rivals Navarene in its military strength and pure wealth, a fact that would likely lead to war if not for the Order of Truth keeping them in check. Although there are obvious class divides in Draolis, they're less hereditary and more about the wealth divide. If you can earn your place, then you deserve your place. Now we move on to one of these smaller nations, Thamor. As a kingdom, it is not nearly as prosperous as the giants that it borders. In fact, not long ago, it was considered territory that was under dispute by Navarene, Draolis, and Malavic. But then it was claimed and united by a fearsome warrior named Goldguard Landon. Unfortunately, since the kingdom has struggled with its leadership, with Landon's heir having no heirs of their own, and eventually being taken over by a mysterious figure named Holova I, that means there's not the most stable as far as leadership is concerned. Next, on our brief trip through the Steadfast, it is the bleak and harsh nation of Malavic, a kingdom with a difficult landscape to inhabit that was once dominated by vicious warlords. Malavic is currently and temporarily quiet, with its current leader being the most competent type of politician I can think of, a 3-year-old boy. Thankfully, his much older cousin serves as temporary regent, but you can guess that more than a bit of conflict and strife rests in this kingdom over this fact. The harsh lands are at a constant besiege by Abhumans and various criminals, especially those of the bandits run by the Bandit King. If you thought the politics of the last kingdom was in shambles, wait until you get to our next one, and the kingdom of Iskal. Years ago, the proper queen of the nation was deposed of and imprisoned until the time of her death. The queen's sons now tirelessly seek to recapture the throne and redirect control back to the original royal bloodline. This involves political intrigue, both openly and covertly, causing a huge instability in the upper government in the unstable nation. Assassination attempts on the current king has even left him blinded in one eye. Otherwise, Iskal is known for its farmlands and fisheries, with much of the country focused on agricultural pursuits, albeit not the most easily. Ah yes, the Pytharon Empire, one of the oldest kingdoms in the Steadfast. It once held much of the southern lands, as was a military powerhouse, a force to be reckoned with. But due to various internal factors, the empire collapsed nearly a century ago, fractured into the kingdoms we know today. These days, under the guidance of Empress Caladian III, the empire is rebuilding itself, with rumors that it looks at the lands it once ruled with hungry eyes. Although many kingdoms in the Steadfast have good agriculture, none are quite as fruitful as that of the Pytharon Empire, as a veritable breadbasket of the Steadfast, something that allows it to fuel its massive armies. One of the other southern nations, Milave, is a land of fractured power. Although technically under the same banner, this ex-member of the Pytharon Empire is really just a mixture of feudal lords and small republics. If it wasn't for the fear of the Pytharon Empire, it would likely fall apart into chaos and tiny micronations. The only glimmer of hope is the popular support of a noble warlord named Tarvesh and his personal fighting force that includes several terrifying Numenera war machines. Not only does he have quite a bit of public support, but he is one of the key things that is probably keeping the Empire at bay. And finally, we get to Enkuan, a land of rolling hills, peaceful areas, and bountiful herds, with Milave acting as a buffer between it and the hungry empire. Enkuan has far fewer troubles, aside from some pirates, bandits, and the usual natural hazards for the Ninth World. King Assur Mantir rules from an awe-inspiring castle made from a glass-like material that stands alone outside even of the nearest city. No one may enter the castle or even live within 16 kilometers of it without a very special permission from the royal house. The people of Enkuan, although ruled over by royalty, live in remarkable freedom and remain mostly independent in their daily lives. But when they need it, the royal forces are there to assist, especially the Rast Riders, armed forces that ride in the skies on their biomechanical bat mounts with renowned archery skills. Neat. And there we have it, a brief overview of the Steadfast. Although we will delve into specific nations, people, and points of interest later, it seems important that we give a more broad view before we get into the specifics. If you have any ideas where you'd like this series to head next, please leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching and enjoying your time in the Ninth World.